Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fallen London. Today we're going to be having a look at July's exceptional story, The Stolen Song. As always, at the start of a new exceptional story, play these for yourself, spoilers ahead, help support Failbetter, become an exceptional friend. Not only do you get access to these stories every month, you get a bigger deck and more actions. If you want to help support me and the channel here, become a YouTube member. There's a Ko-fi page. It is greatly appreciated and it really does help me keep making these videos. But without further ado, jump in. An urchin runs by, shoving a leaflet into your hand. It offers free admission to a music hall performance. Checking the time on the leaflet, you see that it begins in 15 minutes. The leafleting is no doubt a last-minute attempt to fill a partially empty. Well, let's attend the performance. If the singing is not to your liking, you can always leave. The leafleting can't have been that successful. You manage to secure a table all to yourself. Moments later, a magnificently dressed woman glides on stage. While the theatre is only half full, her small audience greets her with loud enthusiasm. A hush falls, and in a rich contralto, the woman begins to sing. She sings of a caged songbird and its owner, and the guilt its owner feels for not setting her beloved pet free to share its voice with the world. Her skill and sentiment bring many in the audience to tears. We can get up to leave. You do not care for such mawkish sentimentality, and given the empty seats around you, perhaps your distaste is widely shared. Or you can stay for more. It may be worth hearing how the song's story ends. Besides which, the Contralto's voice is good, and certainly worth the price of your ticket. Let's stay for more. You settle into your seat, waiting for further developments in the story of the homebound bird and its overprotective owner. But just as the contralto begins a particularly florid third verse, the audience becomes distracted. Beneath the contralto's overwrought arpeggios, you hear a rush of whispers. This builds to a rumbling murmur, and you spy some kind of commotion in progress up near the stage. A member of the audience, a petite, overdressed woman in an elaborate hat, has managed to elbow her way through the orchestra pit and climb up on the stage. Seeing her approach, the singer inches her way backwards. She is still singing, as if hoping the woman will change her mind and return to her seat. But the petite interloper shows no signs of retreat. She charges at the singer, whose high note devolves into a loud shriek as the woman slaps her across the face. "Thieving baggage!" the woman pauses to yell, affording the singer a moment to recover from shock and gather her strength. Her face now dark with indignation. She responds with a wallop to her assailant's ear. "Get off my stage!" The two women continue in a like manner, their violent riposts accompanied by the ragged strains of an orchestra whose players are not quite sure whether they should play valiantly on or give up. Though we can either interview in support of the singer deserves protection from what looks like an entirely unprovoked attack. We can support her assailant. It's currently an unfair fight. The singer stands a good head above her assailant. Or we can call for a constable. This is a matter for the police. Let's call for the police. While the audience watches the action on stage with more relish than they had for the original performance, you push your way to the back of the theatre. Once out on the street, you are fortunate to spot a constable almost immediately. You flag him down and he accompanies you back into the theatre. The constable makes his way up on stage and inserts himself between the two women, holding a hand up at each of them, as if directing wayward traffic. He then blows his whistle, an action that elicits whoops and cheers from the audience. The results of this valiant intervention are mixed. While the constable successfully intercepts a punch from the singer, The small woman's coin purse hits him in the nose. The two women lurch backwards, both shocked by this inadvertent assault on an officer of the law. They shuffle nervously away to opposite wings of the stage, leaving the constable applying a handkerchief to his bloodied nose. At length, the constable comes down from the stage. As he passes by, he pauses to thank you for alerting him to the fracas. "Oh, silly cats. Just a spot of professional jealousy, I expect." The constable pauses to inspect and reapply his bloodied handkerchief. "So, the smaller woman is a singer too?" "Aye, rivals, ain't they? The singers round here are like that. They're all fancy airs and graces until the minute they get a bee in their bonnet over something. Then before you know it, they're going at it like gutter snipes." A grey-haired woman in fine but businesslike attire appears on stage from the wings. She announces that, owing to the disrespectful scene just witnessed, the singer will not be returning to resume her performance. The news is met with whistles and boos. The manager stands there, entirely unfazed. When the noise has died down, she raises her voice. "By way of compensation, the house is offering patrons a round of drinks at the Broken Leg, the public house, around the corner." The audience roars their approval. They immediately begin rising from their seats to make their way towards the exit. We can follow the rest of the audience to the public house. Why not see where the evening takes you? Or we can resist the pull of the crowd. You have no interest in repairing to a public house. Let's resist the pull. Try as you might to resist, you find yourself swept along by the crowd as it surges towards the theatre doors and decants itself out into the street. It mills around outside the theatre briefly before a man shouts, "This way!" The crowd surges again to follow him in the direction of the public house. Another attempt to make your way in the opposite direction fails. "This is the best night out I've had in years," an elderly woman declares as the pub goers near their destination. A hanging sign that bears a somewhat gruesome image of a broken leg. The crowd files eagerly into the public house. Judging by its decor, this is an establishment patronised by theatre performers and their audiences. Glass cabinets holding old stage props line one of the walls. Other walls bear yellowed, autographed playbills. The theatre audience spreads out, and before long every corner of the pub resounds with shouts and laughter. The exception to this is the northeast corner, where the pub's snug is situated. Around a dozen drinkers are seated in this cosy alcove, listening to someone with wide-eyed attention. This relative silence is punctuated with the occasional chorus of ohs and ahs. Something has captured their interest, and whoever the speaker is, they seem to be offering the only entertainment to be had at the Broken Leg this evening. Entering the snug, you are afforded a clear view of a raconteur, a woman frocked in a shabby barrister's robe. She leans over the head of the table, wielding a pint of beer. As she speaks, she waves her black-robed arms about like some kind of distressed bat. Her gestures accompany both dramatic pronouncements and the spilling of ale over her neighbours. You can eavesdrop if you stay at a reasonable distance. You might even keep your clothes dry, or you can join the conversation. It will surely be more entertaining if you participate. Let's eavesdrop. You squeeze into a bench seat in the outer corner of the snug. The rumpled barrister is drunkenly boasting about a case she is defending. Her client is a famous woman, accused of a very terrible crime. At first, her audience is enthralled, and they beg the barrister for names and details. But as few are forthcoming, one by one, the drinkers begin to make excuses and drift away. Meanwhile, your sleeve has become snagged on a nail under the table. Following the last of the barrister's audience out the snug with any discretion would be quite impossible. Can't tear yourself away, can you? A keen listener too, I see. The rumpled barrister takes a moment to look you over. Well then, I have a proposition for you. Oh no. The rumpled barrister wants to talk to you. Trapped in your seat by a nail snagging your sleeve, you have little choice but to listen. Let's hear the rumpled barrister's proposition. Until you can unhook your sleeve from the nail, you haven't much choice. My investigator's been taken poorly. Sickly lad, can't be helped. The rumpled barrister tells you with an ambivalent shrug. I'd like you to fill in for him for a few days. She supposes you'll be an adequate replacement, she adds. After all, you've been asking a lot of questions, an excellent quality in a barrister's investigator. The woman is arrogant, coarse, and unquestionably inebriated. Her proposal is ill-judged and presumptuous, but it could be profitable, or at the very least, interesting. I'll see you first thing in the morning then. The rumpled barrister hands you a card. That's the address of my chambers, in the cold light of day. In the murky gloom of what passes for a London dawn, you remember the events of the previous night. It was quite the evening. A musical performance with a violent turn, followed by an offer of employment in a pub. You draw out the rumpled barrister's card to look at it, recalling her description of the duties of a defense barrister's investigator. Something about following up on any leads that are revealed as the trial proceeds. She was very drunk when she made the offer. Perhaps, outside the presence of alcohol, you can be clearer about the requirements. Well, let's head off to see the rumpled barrister. No time like the present. According to her card, the rumpled barrister's chambers are located off Doubt Street. After pushing your way through the silk stalls of spite, you find yourself in a maze of covered lanes, punctuated with ornate, arched doorways. At length, you find the one matching the address on the barrister's card and enter into a cramped, dimly lit front room. A youth, dressed in a clerk's attire, sits doodling at a small writing desk. Without inquiring as to who you may be, he waves you through into a larger room behind him. Through a haze of tobacco smoke, you see the woman you met last night. The barrister stands behind a large oak table, a pipe in her mouth, vigorously shoving papers into a worn leather briefcase. From the bags under her eyes and the unkempt state of her hair, she looks as though she hasn't slept, perhaps not even changed her clothes, since you met her the night before. We can tell the rumpled barrister you're here about her offer of employment. If you assist her, she might reveal thrilling details about the case that she was reluctant to reveal last night. Or we can excuse ourselves and leave. She's not mentioned pay, and her shabby, haphazard demeanour suggests the work is unlikely to be enjoyable. Let's say we're here about her offer of employment. The rumpled barrister pauses to look at you. She removes the pipe from her mouth and blows out a long puff of smoke, as if meditating hard on the question of where she may have met you before. You remind her of last night's offer of employment. Yes, indeed. Very good, very good. Barrister nods approvingly, clearly pleased that her drunken self had the good sense to recruit a new investigator. We're late, she barks at you, as if this is in some way your fault. She hands you some of the papers she didn't manage to fit in her briefcase, then bids you follow her out the door to court. We can follow the rumpled barrister to court. She shows no signs of waiting for you. Once in court, you'll be occupied for some time. Okay, let's try. The rumpled barrister strides out of her chambers at a fast clip. You keep pace as she darts through the maze of covered walkways, the importance of the case clearly more significant to her than the pain of her hangover. The stone-paved paths lead into a series of closed gardens and past grander arched doorways. Before long, you're following the barrister up the steps of a large, grey stone building, the courthouse. You rush into the courtroom with the rumpled barrister. You've barely time to take your seat before being asked to rise again for the entrance of the judge. A tired-looking, bewigged figure shuffles towards the judge's bench and sits down. He begins to read verbatim from the charge sheet in a bored drone. The charge is far from boring, however, and the jury are listening with wide-eyed interest. The rumpled barrister's client, a well-known music hall singer, has been charged with the most sensational crime: stealing a song from a rival. The prosecuting counsel makes a short opening speech and calls his first witness, an aggrieved soprano. We can take in our surroundings. How often will you get this perspective on a trial? Or we can listen to the aggrieved soprano's testimony. Let's take in our surroundings. From your seat at the defense counsel's table, you contemplate the scene. Seated on the high bench in front of you is the judge, peering down over the proceedings with a weary air. You follow his eyes down to the witness box, wherein stands the aggrieved soprano. It's the woman you saw at the music hall attacking the accused Contralto. In the sober envisions of the courtroom, the petite assailant appears delicate, even fragile. At any rate, she looks decidedly less fearsome than she did during her outburst. That said, the aggrieved soprano is a performer herself. Could this too be a performance? Let's listen to her testimony. Perhaps she will reveal something that you can investigate. I wrote the song about my poor dear cat, you see, says the aggrieved soprano, her tongue indulgent and wistful. He does so yearn to share his musical talents with the world. But the delicacy and innocence of her cat is such that he cannot be allowed to roam the dangerous streets of London. She goes on to explain. And yet by keeping him confined indoors, she denies him his dearest wish. It puts her in terrible bind. But the guilt! The aggrieved soprano produces a large, lace-trimmed handkerchief from her sleeve and dabs it to her eye. The guilt I feel for keeping him locked up like that. I had to let it out, didn't I? So I wrote a song about it. And it was really helping until she removes her handkerchief from her eye to point an accusatory finger towards the rumpled barrister's client, who is seated behind you. Until she stole it from me. The accused Contralto glares back at her. And so, by learning of this most egregious theft of your song by the accused, says the prosecuting counsel, you went straight to the police to press charges, did you not? I did indeed. The prosecuting counsel is questioning his first witness, an aggrieved soprano who claims the defendant stole her song. So we can either take notes. Having accurate details of the testimony may prove useful, or we can observe the jury's reaction. Do they seem to believe the aggrieved soprano's story? Let's take notes. In the aggrieved soprano's testimony, he mentions a cat. Write the word cat in your notebook. Seeing this, the barrister plucks the pencil out of your hand, circles the word, and adds a question mark. She then reclines back into her chair and closes her eyes. An action indicative of either thoughtful consideration or a midday nap. The judge now invites the rumpled barrister to begin her cross-examination of the witness. As she rises to her feet, her transformation is impressive. From a shabby, slouching figure to the very image of a legal auditor. Now standing tall and bewigged, both hands gripping the collar of her barrister's robe, she raises her chin and opens her mouth to speak. Sound emerges. For several more attempts, it is clear the rumpled barrister has lost her voice. Shall we fetch a soothing drink? Request a 5-minute adjournment to get the rumpled barrister a drink? Or we can request an adjournment. Surely by tomorrow the rumpled barrister will have her voice back. Let's go get her a drink. Very well, says the judge. You may have 3 minutes. You hurry out of the courtroom into the entrance hall. Hearing a distant rattle coming from an adjacent corridor, you follow the sound to a tea trolley, replete with tea urn and accoutrements. Now armed with a cup of lukewarm tea rattling noisily on its saucer, you rush back into court. The rumpled barrister, who has been waiting with some impatience, snatches the cup from you and gulps the tea down. But your efforts are to little avail. When the barrister raises again to speak, the resulting rasps are no more intelligible than her previous efforts. The judge sighs and shakes his head. Well, I guess we'll be requesting an adjournment. Surely by tomorrow the rumpled barrister will have her voice back. The judge interrupts you with a tired wave of his hand, as if too weary to even hear your request. Your application for an adjournment is denied. My docket is full this week. Quite full. The rumpled barrister has lost her voice and cannot conduct the cross-examination. What is to be done? Well, I'll do it myself. You've barely any experience with the case, and yet, after the rumpled barrister, you are the most familiar with it. The judge considers you for a moment. Very well, says the judge after a long sigh. I suppose we must spare the defendant the indignity of having to represent herself. You may stand in the defense. Excellent news. You turn to the rumpled barrister for an approving nod, and she is staring at you in horror and disbelief. She grabs your investigator's notebook and begins writing something in it. Bailiff, continues the judge, fetch a spare wig and gown from the robing room. You look down to see what the barrister has written. A barely legible scrawl reads, I will instruct you. How hard can being a lawyer be? I've played through Judgment on stream. It was easy. Don't worry about it. The aggrieved soprano looks straight at you, awaiting your questions with a look of noble defiance. The judge stares down at you, frowning impatiently. The jurors are watching you with an air of polite expectation. Fortunately, though, the rumpled barrister has promised to instruct you. You turn to see if she has written you a note. But not only is the open page of your notebook entirely blank, the rumpled barrister is now asleep in the chair. Very well, you'll have to cross-examine the aggrieved soprano without her help. So we can confront the aggrieved soprano about her assault on the defendant last night. Isn't she the real criminal here? We can accuse the aggrieved soprano of stealing the song herself. What evidence is there that she didn't steal this song from the client, the accused Contralto? Demand proof that the two songs are the same. She claims her cat is the subject of the stolen song, yet the song you heard the accused Contralto sing was about a bird. Let's demand proof that they are the same. Well, she's gone and changed the words, ain't she? The aggrieved soprano rolls her eyes, as if she is losing patience with your failure to grasp obvious concepts. You can't go singing a song about my cat, else she'd never get away with it. That's why she made it about some bird. He turns to the judge, as if to share confidence. Thieves are sneaky like that, my lord. She goes on to assert that while the subjects may differ, the two songs are identical in all other respects. He offers to sing the two songs by way of demonstration, if it would be useful to the court. The jury, who clearly feel that a star of the music hall singing for them in court would indeed be useful, direct encouraging looks and nods towards the judge. Let's ask her to sing a song. Sing a verse of the original song. Is it really that similar to the accused Contralto's song? You'll be able to tell yourself, seeing as how you heard it sung at the theatre. The aggrieved soprano clasps one hand to her chest, the other outstretched, in the manner of a queen waving to her subjects. Once settled in this pose, she begins to sing. A high, crystalline voice fills the space, reverberating off the hard surfaces and high ceilings of the courtroom, as if it were the perfect auditorium. My little cat, he sings so sweet, his songs are like to make you weep. But though he longs to roam and sing far from home, safe indoors my cat I must keep. Melody is indeed as the aggrieved soprano claimed, identical to the song you heard last night. The jury watches in rapt silence as the aggrieved soprano fumbles in her skirt, then in her bag for a handkerchief. After a noble sniff, dabs the corner of her eye. The performance is clearly found affecting by many of the courtroom. Several jurors are now reaching for their own handkerchiefs. Why would a cat sing? It makes no sense to me, that's all I'm saying. Okay, well, let's confront the aggrieved soprano about her assault on the defendant last night. Isn't she the real criminal here? The aggrieved soprano casts an imploring glance towards the jury. That woman! She! Her voice breaks, and she wipes away what may or may not be a tear. From where you're standing, it's hard to tell. Getting up on stage and singing my song like that, night after night, it's a cruelty is what it is. She's set on provoking me. The aggrieved soprano pauses momentarily to press a fist against her chest, which now visibly heaves with emotion. She explains that while her reaction was, he admits, regrettable, it was merely the natural expression of an aggrieved party whose passions had been capriciously roused. And is it not every person's duty to act when they see a crime in progress? That being the crime of thieving, my lord, she adds, helpfully, turning to address the judge. As you well know, nobody holds with those that steal songs in our line of work. So we can say that maybe she stole it? What evidence is there that she didn't steal the song from your client? The aggrieved soprano frowns at you, as if puzzled. But like I told you, my song is about my cat. Where's the sense in someone making up a song about some other singer and her cat? Be a bit daft if you ask me. With the jury tittering in amused agreement, the aggrieved soprano winks at them before turning to the judge with an innocent air. If you'll pardon my French, my lord. Buoyed by the success of her performance so far, the aggrieved soprano continues. Besides, it was me who performed the song first, and that's a fact. Ask any of them that goes to the music hall on an evening. They'll all tell you. The singer goes on to assure the court that so confident is she in this last assertion that any evidence found to the contrary would eat her hat. She is not presently wearing a hat, but perhaps she keeps one on hand for when such a need arises. We can question the existence of the aggrieved soprano's cat. If her song tells the true story of her beloved cat, then where is said cat? If she is so attached to the creature that she sings songs about him, why isn't the cat here today? Before the soprano has a chance to reply to this question, the proceeding counsel rises with brisk objection. My lord, the existence of the cat is beyond doubt. In point of fact, he is our next witness. Is he indeed? The judge remarks, raising his eyebrows briefly in interest before frowning down at you with an air of impatience. Then I would ask that the defense not waste any more of the court's time with irrelevant questions. Okay, well, let's ask her to sing a verse of the Accused Contralto's version of the song. Really that similar to the aggrieved soprano's cat's song? The soprano places one hand on her hip and the other on the railing of the witness box. Her pose gives all appearance of a bored woman waiting to be served at a pub. After loudly clearing her throat, and in pointedly sarcastic tone, she begins singing the first verse of her rival's song. My little bird, he sings so sweet, a voice so pure, 'twould make you weep. She longs to spread her wings and share the songs she sings, but in a cage my little bird I must keep. Muffled sniggers fill the courtroom. There's a loud scraping of chair legs, and the accused contralto leaps to her feet, an aghast look from the judge as her promptly sit back down again. Despite the method of her delivery, the aggrieved soprano's testimony has made one thing clear. The two songs are almost identical. Well, let's end the cross-examination. A cat is to be called to the stand. Now that's something that shouldn't be delayed. You declare that you have no further questions for the witness. Take your seat. The judge turns now to the prosecuting barrister. You may call your next witness, whom I believe to be Mr. What does it say here, Mr. A cat, my lord, the young prosecuting barrister responds flatly. If he feels any discomfort or embarrassment over calling a cat to the stand, he hides it well. His immaculate grooming, from his well-kept wig to his freshly pressed gown, suggests a determination not to give an appearance of disorder. The cat from the song. A cat strolls over to the witness box. After an investigative sniff of the high stool provided by the court usher, he leaps up and begins grooming himself, as if oblivious of the formality of the proceedings. Meanwhile, the rumpled barrister snores gently in the chair behind you. Given the lack of seriousness with which some appear to be taking these proceedings, one might ask why you are turning your time and talents to them yourself. Drives you. This case has piqued my interest, and you feel compelled to see it through, or a sense of justice compels you. Every defendant deserves an advocate. With a rumpled barrister indisposed, who else is going to speak for the accused Contralto? Go with that one, a sense of justice. Barrister still snoozes beside you, a rumpled robe emitting wafts of port wine and stale tobacco. She has slept all the way through the cat's testimony. Even if the rumpled barrister had her voice, she would surely not have been fit to mount an adequate defence in this state. The prosecutor asks the cat to confirm his identity. Is he the feline companion made famous by the aggrieved soprano's song? Yeah, I am he, the cat drawls, with an air of nonchalance. He lifts one paw and begins licking it slowly. The prosecuting counsel ignores this and continues to his next question. Are you both as musical and housebound as the song claims? The cat pauses a moment to inspect his now clean paw before tucking it back under his chest. Whispered ohs and ahs from the jury suggest they find this adorable. Well, yes, the cat finally replies. I don't like to boast, but I am told that I have a rare gift for music. And it is true that I am an indoor cat, destined to live out my days within the confines of my mistress's residence. Indeed, coming to court today has afforded me a rare and tantalising glimpse of the outside world. The jury follow the cat's gaze as he turns his head to stare wistfully towards a high window on the far side of the courtroom. A bird can be seen perching on the outside ledge. Perhaps he yearns to eat it. The judge now invites you to begin your cross-examination. For some reason I forgot that cats could speak in the Fallen London universe. A lot more things make sense now. Ask the cat why he lets his mistress keep him housebound. London's cats are famously independent. Why would he consent to being kept a prisoner? The cat props himself on his forelegs and holds his head high. Although of course I dream of sharing my music with the world, I would not hurt my mistress at any price. Some in the jury, perhaps pet owners themselves, nod their heads in approval, clearly moved by this expression of sacrifice and loyalty. The cat adds that this plight is not unusual. Though they may be less visible, there are many indoor cats like him, especially in London, where the streets can be very dangerous, or so his mistress tells him. The aggrieved soprano's cat, still and sphinx-like, stares at you from his perch atop a stool in the witness box. Well, let's demand that the cat prove he can sing. After all, the song asserts his voice is so sweet it would bring his audience to tears. You are prepared to take that risk to verify this claim. The cat responds with soft mewing. The sound is barely audible. What's that? We can barely hear you, the judge bellows. Louder, if you please. The cat pauses for a moment, turns his head toward the ceiling, and opens his mouth wide. Meow. Meow. His voice tears through the courtroom, reverberating loudly off its stone walls. The sound is eye-wateringly painful. It could hardly be described as musical. Indeed, if Pandora's box had a hinge, this could plausibly be the sound of it. There are tears, certainly, though not in the way the prosecution may have hoped. A juror in the middle row hides his head beneath his overcoat. The hat of a juror in the front has fallen to the floor, such was the violence of her reaction to the sound. This unfavourable reception for her cat singing has not gone unnoticed by the aggrieved soprano, who has a full view of it from her seat in a row behind the prosecution's table. She huffs and puffs with indignation, though says nothing. The aggrieved soprano's cat is yowling, his jaw wide, his teeth bared. I'm going to let the cat continue singing. Let no doubt remain that the song about the cat having a sweet voice is a lie. Ow! Frowns the cat in a lower register, his voice now resembling a particularly ardent mating call. Some members of the jury begin to snigger. The ever more aggrieved soprano rises from her seat in the gallery to protest. My cat's voice is the sweetest sound in the world, she proclaims, her indignant voice high and clear above the cowawling. Seeing eyebrows rising in the jury box, she continues, It is to me. He's very talented. Any true cat lover would say the same of their cat. Silence, shouts the judge. I will not have my court turned into a circus. Memories of the jury, you will disregard the testimony from the gallery. Court is now adjourned. You will have to resume your cross-examination tomorrow. The witness box is empty, the cat having retreated to his owner's lap. Let's leave the court with a rumpled barrister. You are, after all, her investigator. Now that the court is adjourned, perhaps she has some investigating for you to do. Your intention to leave the court with a rumpled barrister thwarted by the fact that she is still asleep in her chair. Perhaps you should rouse her. Before you have a chance to do this, the accused Contralto taps you on the shoulder. How do you think it's going? He asks you quietly, her brow wrinkled by competing emotions of hope and fear. Case, I mean. You've been trained by the best and I have full confidence in you. But would you say things are going well? We can reassure her the case is going fairly well for her so far, when all's considered. Buoying your client's spirits wouldn't hurt either. We can tell her it's not looking good. The case against her looks strong. Well, you did your best today. You are not a trained legal advocate. But yeah, it's fine, we're doing well. Ignoring her assumption that you've been trained in litigation by the rumpled barrister, you tell her the case is going well. After all, during your cross-examination, you have so far managed to cast doubt on the evidence the aggrieved soprano and her cat. Ah yes, that did go well, didn't it? The accused Contralto agrees, nodding a little too emphatically. The rumpled barrister, now finally awake, raps sharply on the table to get your attention. Accompany me back to my chambers, he instructs you in a hoarse whisper. We must prepare for trial tomorrow. She thrusts her briefcase full of files towards you and adds, Come along then. Chop chop. You follow her out of the courthouse and into the maze of covered laneways, hefting along her briefcase in both arms. En route to her chambers, the rumpled barrister leads you into a small pub off one of the laneways. For medicinal purposes, she rasps by way of explanation, pointing to her throat. The rumpled barrister joins a rowdy crowd of legal clerks, leaving you on a stool at the end of the bar to keep an eye on her paperwork. On top of the pile of case files is a scrawled note. A to-do list. Let's read the list. The rumpled barrister's scrawl is messy but legible. Given her general air of negligence and disorganization, there are doubtless things on the list that still need doing. Below the entry, Send Wig to Cleaner, see the item Find Defense Witness to confirm birdsong is true, ergo original. Beside this are a pair of names and addresses, but no indication that they have been followed up on. One is a veterinarian, the other a bird seller. There's no point trying to ask the rumpled barrister about her list. She is currently at the centre of what looks to be an impenetrable scrum of clerks. And are you not, after all, her investigator? You can follow up on these leads yourself. But I think before we continue this to see the veterinarian or the bird seller, this is a good place for me to end it here. So I'm going to thank you all very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. Thank you again to the members of the channel. It really does mean the world to me and it helps me make these videos. But as always, I'll see you next time.